Welcome, welcome to the Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu. I work with leaders in healthcare research, STEM, and other technical fields who want to develop an authentic leadership identity and create a healthy, inclusive workplace environment to retain the best people doing their best work. In other words, developing the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. This season, we are focusing on developing identity, leadership identity, that is, the second stage of my strategic leadership pathway model. And today we're talking with Jacquelyn Lane and Scott Osman, co-authors with Marshall Goldsmith of Becoming Coachable. Welcome, both of you.
Great to be here with you, Mara.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Now, as a reminder to our audience, we value evidence-based practical solutions. So be ready, take notes, I always do, reflect deeply, and identify at least one small step to further develop your hard skills muscle. Let me introduce them a little bit more so you can learn about our guest today. So Scott Osman is the founder and CEO of 100 Coaches Agency and co-designer of their proprietary curation process and the company's relationship first philosophy. In his role as CEO, he establishes the vision for the company, leads partnerships and business development, and serves as a leading light of the 100 Coaches community, which he co-founded with Marshall Goldsmith in 2016. He is the co-founder of Methods by 100 Coaches, the online learning platform. Now, Jacquelyn Lane is the president of 100 Coaches Agency and co-designer of their proprietary curation process and relationship first philosophy. She has been with the agency since its founding and is a critical pillar of the 100 Coaches community. Jacquelyn comes to the world of executive coaching through her previous roles in the energy industry and lifelong commitment to improving the lives of all people by elevating the quality of leadership. Now, I became aware of them because I was a founding member in their cohort of Forefront, which is powered by 100 Coaches Agency. So that's kind of a little connection there. Welcome again, Jacquelyn and Scott. I kind of like the fact that you're in the same room. That is, I guess, unusual these days. Isn't that nice?
Oh, it's wonderful. In fact, well, we actually started working together early in the pandemic. And so we had never even met in person for over a year of working together. So we're one of those COVID companies. And when the restrictions started lifting, I actually made the decision to move from Austin, Texas to New York City so that we could collaborate in person. It was great to build so many relationships over Zoom, but even better.
Oh my gosh. I love that story. I still have people that I've connected with only over Zoom and LinkedIn and have not yet met in person, which is kind of shocking. It's been years, you know. So I love that you're in the same room. You're able to work together in real life now. By the way, if you're watching this right now or on the recording, I'm going to warn you that I have a cough. I'm trying to manage it. I've taken all the medications. I have my, little lozenges. I have my tea here. So just a warning, that's what I'm dealing with right now. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start with just sharing a little bit about 100 Coaches Agency and how you became interested in this work in the first place.
Got one? You kick us off?
Sure. I actually didn't know anything about coaching 10 years ago. I was introduced to Marshall Goldsmith, #1 executive coach, leadership thinker. And it was just interesting. We hit it off. And then he called me up one day and he said, I want to teach 15 people everything I know about coaching because my mentors, Peter Drucker and Francis Hesselbein, taught me everything they knew. He had taken a workshop with Aisha Bursell, one of the members of our community, and asked me if I would help him set up that very first workshop. So he put up a video on LinkedIn and 12,000 people applied. I think it's now over 20,000 people have applied to be part of this. And we did the first workshop in December of 2016. Eventually we ended up picking 25 people and it went really well. So we did it again and again. And by December of 2017, we had 100 people that we had sort of run through these workshops. But it turns out we were also building community. It's a combination of leaders, leadership thinkers, and leadership coaches. Unbeknownst to us, we hadn't really thought of it at the time, but each of those are fairly lonely professions, right? A leadership coach is working one-on-one with a handful of people, and leadership experts typically write books and give keynote speeches. So while they're with a lot of people, they're not really connecting with them on an ongoing basis. And gosh, leadership is just one of the loneliest professions in the world. And so we started to build a community of people who felt like they had found a family and had created a home. And since then, the community has grown to about 400 people. After about 3 years of building the community, we had been aggregating some of the best coaches in the world. And so people started calling, looking for coaches. And for a year, I casually recommended coaches to executives who were looking for coaches, and then realized something bigger was happening, that it turns out that it's difficult to find top coaches in the world because they are all solo entrepreneurs. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Jacquelyn at that time, and together we developed what's now our curation process, which is our specialized approach to matching some of the best leaders in the world with the best coaches in the world. And then about a year ago, we were kind of thinking, how do people prepare for coaching? How do they know if they're right? Because that's a question that we get quite frequently. And we looked around for any kind of books or information about that, and there wasn't any. So, and this is super rapid. So literally in November of last year, we decided to write the book, which is now the book Becoming Coachable. We started working on it in January. We finished it in May. We had hard copies of it to share with our friends in June.
Wow.
At a big annual meeting that we had, and it was released on September 19th. And by October 1st, it was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. So it's been quite a ride.
Yeah.
But I think it's been quite a ride because the idea of becoming coachable really resonates with people.
Yeah. And it's been an amazing journey over the last 3 and I guess almost and a half years, where now we've established the 100 Coaches Agency, grown rapidly, now placed over 300 executives with coaches, and feel so blessed and privileged to get to work with so many of the top coaches and thinkers in the world. And of course, it's all this wonderful self-reinforcing and growing community.
What a whirlwind, and such an amazing result. And clearly it's because the need was there. You saw the need and you met the need. Out of curiosity, so let's just share the basics here, right? What does it mean to be coachable? And well, let's start there. What does it mean to be coachable?
Sure. I guess I'll lead.
Please.
And then in writing the book and coming up with the idea of becoming coachable, we surveyed our community, who some of the top coaches in the world, and they came back with us to us with some answers, which we distilled down to 4 key attributes, which we now call our openness framework. It's in the book. And the first attribute of the openness framework is being open to change, which, when you hear it, it sounds obvious and simple. And yet, how often is it that someone says, I want to coach, but I'm not really willing to change. Like, I want the coach to do the work for me, or I'm pretty happy with where I am right now. And, quite frankly, if you're not open to change, our advice is don't waste your time and money on coaching, because coaching is all about change. In fact, leadership really is all about change, and change is hard.
Yeah. And then the second step that we identified from, again, talking to so many people in our community is this idea of being open to feedback. In fact, that's very much embedded in the process of being coached. But it's not just in the process of being coached, it's also in the process of leadership, right? You are going to be constantly hearing feedback. That's part of how we learn and grow and be better, especially in a complex thing like leadership, where there are a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of different people at play. We have to be open to hearing what other people have to say, or how we're being perceived. What are some of the strengths that are happening in our organization? What are we doing well? And what do we need to improve? And so being open to feedback is that.
Right. And of course, with Marshall's guidance, being open to feedback naturally means receiving it without judgment. Marshall's guidance always is, when someone gives you feedback, recognize that feedback is a gift. When someone gives you a gift, the only appropriate answer is thank you. And that has really been that is such a great piece of advice that we certainly use regularly.
Yeah.
The third attribute in the openness framework, again, like I do feel like so many of these things are so obvious, and yet, Marshall also often says, it's simple but hard. So the third one is being open to taking action, right? So you can be open to change, and that's great. And you can listen to the feedback and say thank you. But if you're not willing to actually take action based on the change that you perceive is needed and the feedback you're receiving, then again, you're not really ready to become coachable, because coaching and being coachable is really all about making those changes that create, make you a better leader and, improve the lives of the people around you.
Yeah. And then, of course, that last step in the openness framework is being open to being held accountable, because there's change and then there's lasting change, but lasting change really only happens when there's accountability. Now, that's not to say that's always the case. Sometimes we have these unlock moments, these realizations where things are kind of forever different. We're forever changed people. Those are real for sure. But a lot of things, especially the consistency that's required of leadership, requires accountability. And oftentimes accountability is best done with another human being. We can, of course, have apps and systems and methods of tracking, and all of that's great. But we find that the people who most consistently stick with their goals and accomplish the things they set out to do are people who have some system of accountability, usually in the form of another person.
Yeah. So as simple as that, just being open to change, feedback, taking action, and being held accountable, and boom, there we go.
Now you're coachable.
Now you're coachable. Yeah. I mean, yes, the fact is it's absolutely true that these sound simple, and they are hard skills to actually enact. Starting with the first, I mean, we all say, yes, I want feedback, or give me feedback. But most of the time, we just want the positive feedback. We just want you to say what we're doing well. We don't want to hear the negative, especially if we haven't already sort of assessed that in ourselves and it's like brand new to us. And so, and being open to change, so many of us start all kinds of things that we say we want to change, whether that's like, I want to build muscle, I want to lose some weight, or, like those health goals that we have in the beginning of the year that just like peter off. It's not like we don't want the change, but to make it happen is the hard part about it. It's the sticking to it. It's the accountability piece. It's the taking action, like you said, right? That's the hard part.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I do think that it gets harder as you go through that framework.
For sure.
So I'm totally aligned with you there, but it takes hard work. It takes effort.
Right.
There's no denying.
But you know what? If you do it, it works. Marshall's fond of saying it doesn't work some of the time. It works all the time. If you really do it, if you are open to change and feedback, and you take action and are held accountable, you'll see that change. It's just unavoidable.
Absolutely. So we're nearing an ad break. When we come back, let's talk about the challenges to this and how it differs from, other methods that we might use for change. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guests, Jacquelyn Lane and Scott Osman. We now air on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join our online audience and ask questions, we can answer them right now in real time. Find us on LinkedIn or YouTube at Talk Radio NYC, and we'll be right back with our guests in just a moment.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangiify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc, Fridays at noon Eastern, and Intangiify your business today.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back with our guests, Jacquelyn and Scott Osmond of Becoming Coachable, which, yes, I do have the book, and it's fully tagged up with so many underlines and comments all throughout. So I did enjoy it. It was really, really good. So big fan here. For those of you tuning in live, welcome in. So we were talking about what it means to becoming coachable. And you shared 4 things. The first being open to change, then open to feedback, open to taking action, and open to being held accountable, which all sound easy, but they are not in real action, real life, right? Now, one question I had for you is how do you distinguish this from, let's say, supervision, which sometimes we get lots of all of these through supervision, mentorship, right? Or a consultant. Each of these sort of groups of people do some of the same things as coaches, right? And in order to receive the feedback, be open to change, it kind of works in lots of different kinds of relationships, right? Yeah. Are there ways that you distinguish being coachable for a coaching engagement versus for a supervisory mentorship, consulting, or other type of relationship?
It's a really important question. And of course, I'd like to distinguish, of course, a little bit between the types of coaching that might be received. Certainly, I've been a collegiate athlete, so the type of coaching that I received in an athletic sense is different than executive coaching and some of these other methodologies. However, learning to be coachable is a great meta skill that allows us to engage with all of those different types of coaching, understanding that not everyone is a skilled or trained or talented coach. But nonetheless, the skill set of being coachable is something that applies to all different aspects of leadership in life. You know, learning to take feedback or engage with our spouses, friends, family members, colleagues, that can be a really important, fulfilling thing. But I would, of course, like to go back to your point and distinguish that, of course, not everyone is skilled at providing feedback or holding you accountable the same way that a coach will, because a coach that is part of their profession and what they do on a regular basis. And so that makes them a very skilled and safe place to practice the skills of becoming coachable. And a coach will naturally guide you through that process as well. Anything you'd like to add, Scott?
Yeah, the thing I'd add is the coach relationship is a very unusual relationship. In the coaching relationship, the only person that matters to a coach is you, right? That is their sole care and objective. In a mentor relationship, there's some notion that a mentor cares about you, but they also care about their own status within the organization, because often it's within the organization. They have some competing interests. And so while a mentor is good at helping elevate you, they're not going to give you the same kind of clear feedback that you might get from a coach. And then, of course, consultants are there to do the work. So they're not coaching at all.
Yeah. And you're also make me think about, like, some mentors are what I would call narcissistic mentoring, which is like they see you as a narcissistic extension of them. 100%. And so the feedback that they give you is more about them wanting to see legacy through you rather than what might be best for you. So it's really important to assess the relationship and the purpose of the relationship and what you're personally seeking in order to decide, is a coach what I'm looking for here, instead of, a different kind of relationship. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not, but that's a really important question to ask yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So important to really map out what are those incentives, because I think that provides a lot of clarity about what the relationship is, and drives human behavior in a lot of ways.
Right. I think the one thing, I think you make a great point. The one thing you can be sure of with a coach, good coach, is the coach has your interest at heart, right? Because that is
They're
really
a good coach. Yes.
a good coach. That's why I put the caveat in.
Yes.
All of our coaches are good coaches, but yeah, I mean, you want to be careful. In fact, I think, as you kind of point out, a coach who doesn't have your interest first is not really the coach that you want, because it's really important. This is such a precious relationship, and if it's done properly, it creates incredible value and growth. And there's no reason to waste the time or money to not have it done properly.
Right. And that's also part of why I think we're seeing a shift towards more external coaches. There are a number of companies that have internal coaches, and that can be really helpful in some contexts. But I think a lot of people are seeing that having someone who's external and a third party to what's going on is actually very helpful, and makes it very clear that their sole goal is the success of you, their client.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that you get a lot of questions from leaders about how to prepare themselves for coaching, which is interesting. Let's say I'm a leader who is, really interested in coaching for my own personal professional leadership development, to just be the very best leader I can for my organization, for myself, for others, and make the highest level of impact, right? And I've sort of said, I want change, I want the feedback, this is important to me. Are there things that I could find myself doing that get in the way of that sabotage my own success in coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to take this, or you want
Go for it if you would.
Yeah. Well,
I love the knowing laugh.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about my own experience with coaching, and I didn't know anything about coaching before I met Marshall, and then I was around all these coaches, and I thought, gee, I'm around all these coaches, I should get coached, and started talking to them and saying, I'm looking for a coach, and they'd say, great, I'd love to coach you, and they'd say, well, what do you want to work on? And I would say, I don't know, like, things are pretty good. I don't really have anything I want to work on. And they would say, well, we can't coach you if you don't know what you want to work on. So in the first blush, like, not knowing like what I want to like lean into, I guess you could say I wasn't open to change, but I didn't look at it that way at the time. Just not knowing what I wanted to lean into was getting in my way. And then Jacquelyn said, you're really good. You have a lot of great answers. You're really good at coming up with solutions, but you don't have to have all the answers. And in fact, having all the answers kind of blocks other people from contributing. So maybe, so that was sort of my little, I guess you could call that coaching. But then with that, it sort of unlocked this idea that, gee, I could be coached into that. And I found a coach, and that coach said, great, well, now that you know that, let's get rid of the limiting belief. And this is really how he framed it, right? Let's get rid of that limiting belief that you have to have all the answers, because that belief is constraining the possibility of you hearing answers beyond the ones you know.
Right. It goes back to Marshall's classic book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So many leaders, we hear this all the time. They say to us, well, I've gotten all this way. I've been elevated to this position based upon my skills and, how I've performed in the past. So I think I'm doing pretty well. But what they don't realize is that at some point, those things that may have even been skills or gifts to them throughout their career eventually become a limiting factor. For example, let's say someone is really detail oriented, so they get recognized for the high quality work that they're doing. But at some point, being very detail oriented as a leader of a certain level starts looking a lot like micromanaging, and it's going to impact their ability to scale themselves. And so, it takes some level of willingness to really examine oneself, to get rid of old ways of seeing.
Yeah, I'm just going back to your question, like what sabotages your own success? And I'm listening to Jacquelyn, I'm thinking, yeah, like your own success sabotages your own success. It's like your own, like what got you here gets in the way of getting where you want to go.
Right.
And I think a lot of leadership, and this is where coaches come in so handy. A lot of leadership is about letting go of the things that have given you comfort and security all the way to here.
Yeah, it's embracing the journey, knowing that there is more growth ahead. And I would say the other major challenge is when people are really negative. They're very quick to shoot down ideas. Oh, that won't work. Oh, that won't work. They may not believe there is another way. So it's kind of this combination of, the two main challenges I would say are this idea of a little bit of arrogance to say, I got where I need to go. I don't know if I need to change anything. And the other side of that is this negativity that says, I don't know if I can change anything. I don't know if it'll make a difference. I don't know if anything will work. And if someone can, let go of those and hold this balance of humility, and this openness, willingness to really examine oneself, and they pair that with this level of confidence that says, I can make a change and it is going to make an impact. I'm willing to try something new. That's a really beautiful combination that opens someone up to getting the benefits of coaching.
Yeah. The combination of humility and confidence, it sounds like they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. And yet, it's not that it's not about confidence in yourself. It's confidence in just trusting the process, just being open to trying and not fearful. And like you said, about not letting go, right? And the humility to recognize, like you said, what, just because I got here on these skills doesn't mean I have what it takes to get to the next level. And what is that? What is that for me, right? So we're reaching another ad break. And what I'd like us to sort of talk about when we come back from the ad break is how this ties into leadership identity development. Because, once you have some successes as a leader at an earlier stage in your career, you start connecting your identity to those skill sets. This is who I am. These are my skills. This is what I can do, right? And if we believe in this idea, right, of Marshall Goldsmith's, what got you here won't get you there, that means you have to shed something about your leadership identity in order to develop a broader leadership identity, that next level. So I'm sort of curious, how can becoming coachable help us with this, the flowing, changing leadership identity development in our lives? So ad break, I'm going to drop that bomb and then I'm going to go into the ad break. You're watching The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guests, Jacquelyn and Scott Osmond, and we're talking about becoming coachable. We'll be right back after the break.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc. In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
everybody. It's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Mira Broncu, and our guests, Jacquelyn Lane and Scott Osman, who are with the 100 Coaches Agency and wrote the book Becoming Coachable. So where we left off before the break is trying to tie what it takes to become coachable with what it takes to develop your leadership identity over the course of your career. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on sort of like the connection between those and the integration.
Yeah, the identity question is such an important one. I think that's at the core of so many leadership questions and so much of the work that we're doing. But I find that, the process of becoming coachable is really helpful in that. And I think the key indicator of that is the word becoming, right? That we are really in this process of becoming, not arriving. We're constantly reinventing, we're constantly improving. We hear leaders come to us all the time and say things like, if I'm going to be coached, do I need to change? And we tell people all the time, like, of course, that is a part of it. And the next question naturally is does that make me less me? And the answer is no, it doesn't make you less you. You are still you. But we can all become better versions of ourselves all the time. And that's what the becoming coachable process is all about. And so we want to help people access that.
I love the leadership identity question because particularly when you're getting to leaders in the highest levels, your identity as you're growing as a leader is often tied to a skill set. You're the great technology leader, and you're working your way up into becoming a senior leader in technology. And then all of a sudden, you're asked to take a role beyond that, where you're no longer responsible for the functional part, but you're actually responsible for leading other people. I have to say, like, my heart goes out for everybody who makes that transition, because leadership just feels like an unnatural act, right? I mean, your whole life, you get A's, you do well, you're successful, you have these skills that you're getting rewarded for all the time. And now you have to let all that go. And worse, you have to celebrate others for doing what you used to do so well, right? So they're getting all the accolades and now you're stepping back. And your identity has to go from being the person who is the focus of success to the person who creates success in others. And that is a massive, difficult shift that only great leaders get to make. Because I think that any leader who doesn't make that shift, who stays connected with their skill set, can never take the position of leading other people's and helping them create their fullest self. And it's tough. Yeah, it's really tough.
I mean, the other thing we see too is with leaders who are making a transition out of an organization. So especially in the case of retirement, they become very used to an identity associated with a certain title or position or authority. And Marshall tells a lot of stories about executives who make that transition into retirement and lose a sense of self or a sense of meaning because, their jokes are no longer funny. They're no longer being wined and dined by some of the people that used to come around all the time. And the whole dynamic shifts. But it does become this process of letting go, of reinvention. And those people who can make that transition and find deep meaning in their life and can really find another way to contribute and attach to that purpose that they feel, those are the people who go into retirement well. They recognize that their leadership journey is not over, even if they've retired from a major role.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is, number one, these are hard skills, folks. It's hard. It's not easy. And that said, it's incredibly fulfilling, to be able to get to that point where you can find ways to make that kind of impact, as well as let go of old stuff that is no longer serving you or others. It's hard, but incredibly fulfilling, because leadership development is personal development. I always say this. It's you learning how to develop yourself from the inside out. And the reason that I like this question a lot around like identity development is I work mostly with women in leadership. And one of the most important like cruxes of their work that they often seek coaching for, they don't realize they're seeking coaching exactly for this, but this is kind of the challenge for them, is that up until a certain point in your career, not only have you learned to be successful because of your technical expertise, but for women, for marginalized folks, they learn how to be successful within a certain environment that tells them you're acceptable in this way because you are serving other people and you're nurturing other people, and so you develop this incredible skill set to understand what other people need and be of service to others, for example, or look a certain way, look the part. And then you get to this point in your career where all of a sudden the same things that have worked really well, now you're told, you need to speak up. Wait a second, but I was told to not speak up, and that was a good thing. You need to be more confident and take more risks. Wait a second, you told me to hang back, to, be small, not take up too much space, and now I have to do the opposite. It's
Right.
very jarring to switch like that. And you start wondering, like, is this about me? Is this about me not being successful in my role? What is this? So letting go of who am I versus what is the societal message that I've incorporated that I need to let go of now because it no longer is of service to me, right? Is like a big, deep thing to face. And in order to be able to get through that, so that you can sort of like think about what kind of leader do I actually want to be and show up as at this next level. It's all of this stuff that we're talking about, right?
Right. And I think what you're sharing is part of why leadership feels so lonely for people, because not only are they going through some of these questions and inner dialogue and, but it's also very lonely. There's not really a lot of people you can share this with. It wouldn't be appropriate, let's say, to share this with, far and wide within your organization. And so having the support system of a coach or some other person becomes such an important piece of being able to ask these questions, have a safe space to explore them. Because let's be honest, reinvention is somewhat scary. We have to let go of some of those deeply held beliefs and identities and really call them into question in order to grow and reach the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about this timing piece. When might it be time to get a coach? How do people know that? What's the right time? And are there different time points that it makes sense?
Right. So there's a framework that we have now for describing the type of people that we want to work with and who we think are best fit for coaching. We say that they're value creators. So people who are contributing a lot of value to their organizations, that are at an inflection point. So that inflection point can be personal, like a transition, or it can be a shift in a market condition, whatever the case may be. There's some inflection point where they recognize that navigating this inflection point well is going to create a lot of value for me and my organization, and navigating it poorly could have some consequences. And then the third piece of it is that we like to say is in being open to flourishing. And that's even going back to what you were sharing earlier, Mira, about leaders who have been told some of these tendencies about putting other people first always. We might call that people pleasing, right? And people who are, so we have this framework in our book where we talk about the 4 different approaches that a person can have to how they lead and how they approach their work. And people pleasing is on that, of course. Perhaps laudable in the instinct that it cares deeply about other people, but at the expense of self, and that's not really healthy either. And so what we encourage people to do is move away from that and shift into this idea of flourishing, which is to say, I can flourish, I can succeed, I can create value for myself, value for my organization, balance for myself, my teams. And, in doing that, they're creating flourishing and modeling flourishing for everyone around them. And so.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing to hold on to, but when you get there, it feels so natural. This idea that, and mathematically makes total sense. If you can create expansion for everybody, right? So that the entire organization, or at least your group, is creating more value, then the very nature of that means you're going to create more value for yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're in the other positions, I think our framework is striving is, you're extracting value for yourself. People pleasing is you're extracting value for somebody else. So you're still taking value out. It's for somebody else, which seems like it's better, but it's still extractive. A rising leader is creating more value, but really mostly for their own benefit. Everybody benefits, but they benefit a little bit more. But the one that we think everybody should aspire to is the flourishing leader, who recognizes that by creating, the old metaphorical bigger pie, everybody has a bigger slice. And even though and this is the hard part, even though percentage-wise your slice ends up being smaller, right? It's still more and more for everybody. And if you can get there, then the possibilities really are limitless.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember, my own leadership journey, and you start wondering, like, how do you help other people recognize that it doesn't help to hoard all the leadership, and some people, the stuck point there is that they feel bad delegating to others, right?
Right. Right.
Like, I don't want to put the burden on other people. And, I often say that, like, what I realized is that once I mastered something, I didn't need to hold on to it forever. I got it. I mastered it. I can train somebody else up. They can have the opportunity. Now I have more space and time to master other things, to have a greater impact, greater reach, and then pass that along, and then pass that along. And the reach from that perspective is so much greater. So there's no need to hang on, because there's more to be had.
That's exactly right. Elevating others doesn't mean we are lowering ourselves.
I mean, elevating others is the nature of leadership.
And it actually elevates us too.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are reaching another ad break. I see that we have Emmanuel Odoro on YouTube. Hi, Emmanuel, from Ghana. Welcome today, and thank you for listening. I'm glad that you're enjoying our time here. We will be right back with the hard skills in just a moment.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intricacies, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies, from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on talkradio.nyc, Fridays at noon Eastern, and Intricacies your business today.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and with our guests today, Jacquelyn Lane and Scott Osman of Becoming Coachable. And we are talking about the impact on becoming coachable with leadership identity development and what that means. Now, I'm thinking about what we were just talking about, the timing of coaching. And you were starting to talk about there's an inflection point, you have to be open to flourishing, and you got to be a value creator. And you started describing like, in what way can you be a value creator? One way is people pleasing, right? But that is just value for others and not for you at all, right? Then you also started sharing about striving and rising. Let's talk about those two areas and how do you move from a striving or a rising leader to a flourishing, and why would you want to?
Right. So if we think about this on the classic 2x2 grid, right? With the x-axis, that's the horizontal axis, going from me on the left-hand side to we on the right-hand side. And then on the vertical axis, or the y-axis, on the bottom, it's going to be extractive, and on the top, it's going to be expansive. So if we think about what's in that lower left-hand corner, that would be striving. So the striver is really focused on trying to do something for their own benefit. So this, I would say, my early career, this was really a description of me. I was someone who was really spinning my wheels. I was putting in all the hours. I was working really hard, was trying to get recognition, but still couldn't quite figure out how to create real value in my organization. Still getting my feet under me and trying something new, didn't quite find the right fit within, an initial role. And so still wouldn't go quite into that expansive category. It was still somewhat extractive, and I was focused on myself. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, the risers are a lot of leaders that we would consider to be great leaders are risers. They're creating more value for the company. Their teams love them. They're helping their team support. But, fundamentally, their interest is their own personal success. And lots of people benefit around them from their own personal success. But eventually, putting yourself first feels like a huge limiting belief, because you're never going to expand beyond your own. Other side, where you start putting other people first. Not in a people-pleasing way, but in an expansive way. We're going to all grow together. And like you were saying, I'm going to let other people come up with the ideas. Even though this is my hardest thing. Even though I have the best idea, it's still important to let other people have their best ideas, because very often their best ideas are better than mine. Even more often, if their best idea is maybe not as good as mine, sometimes as good, it's still important to let those ideas happen, because they get nourishment and fulfillment from those ideas. And, you have to wonder, is my best idea so much better that it's worth diminishing this other person? And being open that way creates the kind of expansion that we're really looking for.
Yeah. And I would
Another way
guess...
it's the rising leader. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, Another way to put this is the rising leader often views things as a competitive or zero-sum way. And flourishing is really about this collaborative, non-zero-sum way of leading. And that, I think, is part of what unlocked that magic.
Yeah. And I would guess that maybe the greatest trappings for ourselves is when we're a rising leader and others are rising with us, but as kind of like an ancillary, but like we're not intentionally thinking about how to make that happen on a consistent basis. Is that right?
Right. That is exactly how I would describe it as well. Yeah.
I think to your point, when you're really focused on putting everybody else first, not to the diminishment of yourself, but recognizing that we're trying to lift everybody. Lots of great expansive things happen. And when you get used to doing that, candidly, it feels great, right? There's an ease to doing things. You have the support around you. People are doing their things to the best of their ability, which, I mean, let's face it, we all know any team is going to outperform any individual, right? There's just that much more capacity available. And that's, ultimately what leadership is all about. Say your favorite line about a walk.
Oh yeah. The John Maxwell saying is a man taking a walk, or a leader with no followers is just a man taking a walk.
Right. Like followers are what it's all about, and engaging them and celebrating them and elevating them is the job of a leader. At the end of the day, I mean, what else is there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what is the one thing out of all of this good stuff here that you would like people to take away from today?
I guess I would encourage people to, if you are feeling a little bit resistant or disbelief is the feeling that rises up, maybe suspend that disbelief for a moment. Just try taking the first step. Try being open to change, which might lead you to being open to feedback, and just seeing if you can engage in this process. And if it doesn't make at least a little bit of positive impact in your life. But I think that openness, that first step is part of what gets this flywheel turning and sets us all on our own journeys of growth and becoming.
Yeah, I would offer, I think our biggest limitations are self-limitations, right? The things that we think about ourselves, even the biggest things we think about ourselves, are often the things that contain our greatest growth and expansion. And I think one of the great things that a coach can do, but also like good friends, is to let you know that what you're thinking is holding you back, and help you let go of those things so that you can really, rise into the expansion that is going to create a better world for all of us. I mean, ultimately, each of us living our fullest self is the world we want to live in. And it used to sound a little, woo-woo to me. And now I've watched leaders experience it. And I think this is the time that leaders are going to lead us into the world we need to live in. And I don't think we have a choice except to follow.
Yeah. These are the kinds of leaders that we need more than ever today, as leaders who know how to create an environment where everybody thrives and can think about that intentionally. And that takes a lot of personal work.
Absolutely.
Right?
Certainly does.
Hard work. If people, the hard skills.
No kidding.
If people want to learn more about your work, where would they go?
So you can find the 100 Coaches Agency at agency.100 or 100coachesagency.com. There you go. Or agency.100coaches.com. Both work. You can also learn more about our book, Becoming Coachable, at becomingcoachable.com. And it's also available on Amazon.
Yeah.
Follow us on LinkedIn, Jacquelyn Lane, Scott Osmond. Scott has a great weekly newsletter full of awesome insights if you like some of that content.
Great.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So there are many insights we could pull out from today's conversation. They shared so much juicy stuff here. What did you take away from today, audience? And more importantly, what is one small change you can implement this week based on what you learned from Jacquelyn and Scott? Share it with us on LinkedIn. You already heard we're all on LinkedIn, right? And also at talkradio.nyc, so we can cheer you on. We're also on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Twitch, all over the place. But LinkedIn is where I live. So I would like to see some information about what small change you're going to implement based on this there. In addition to being a live show, we're on iTunes and Spotify. Go subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share with others to help increase our visibility, reach, and impact. And you can join us next Tuesday when we'll be talking with Laura Eigel about how values play into leadership identity. In this episode, we discussed one of many aspects of developing the nuanced hard skills needed to make an exceptional leader who can drive significant systemic change to make real impact. If you would like to explore how we can help you with leadership and team development services, you can also check us out at www.gotowerscope.com. Our TowerScope Leadership Academy full membership program will be opening up again in early 2024. So be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, hear about the application process when it goes out. It is a competitive process. You don't want to miss out on the information. Thank you to Talk Radio NYC for hosting. I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, your host of the Hard Skills Show. I went all the way through this show without coughing. Woo, woo, go me. Thank you for joining us today, Jacquelyn and Scott. Have a great rest of your day wherever you're tuning in from.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.